We got the sharpest drafters to participate in a PPR point 0.5 tight end premium mock draft on Player Profiler. All right, Chev. Well, it is draft season. Figured why not come out and do a mock draft. We got a full lineup, full room today, and excited to break it all down with you.
Yeah, I'm drafted from the 5 spot because that's where I'll draft in one of my home leagues, and I want to get as much in the way of preparation as I possibly can. So this will be a lot of fun drafting in a sharp room.
Yeah, and I think we have a lot of analysts in here and a lot of just good loyal players. I'm gonna keep the board up. Once we get to the fifth round, I'll probably drop this off so you can see the entire board. But I like to give the people the ability to watch the list and see who's available when we make decisions. So I'll keep that up for now. But yeah, overall, a lot going on in the NFL this week, a lot of training camp hype, a lot of injuries as well that have gone on. So we'll cover some of that. But as a reminder, it's a PPR draft here, point 0.5 tight end premium. So you get that 0.5 extra bonus per reception for the tight end position. And then it's just two wide receivers, two running backs, quarterback, tight end, and a flex with 8 bench spots. So a total of 15 picks here. And to start the draft off, we got Bijan, CeeDee Lamb ahead of Jamar Chase and Jahmyr Gibbs. Is that too spicy? I mean, I know Jamar Chase feels like he feels like the consensus number one overall pick, but I have Lamb over Jefferson, Chev. Is that crazy to have Lamb over Jamar Chase?
To have Lamb over Jamar Chase, it's kind of so to me, yes.
Okay.
I don't want to big brain it, and you're drafting. So a phrase that I like is, why go to America Junior when you can just go to America? And that's the literal, this is the literal definition of that. So Jamar Chase, youngest Triple Crown winner ever. Even if he regresses slightly, I still think that he's still going to be able to be around. He could spike you another 21 to 22 point per game season. He's locked in with Burrow. The only thing is, like, those guys staying healthy, but the same thing just happened with CeeDee Lamb, and he's a little bit older. So if you want to choose your own adventure and pick CeeDee Lamb, by all means do so. But I wouldn't. If I'm taking a wide receiver and Jamar Chase is available, there's no discussion about me taking another wide receiver.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I think both defenses are going to be pretty bad. I
Mhm.
don't. A lot of people think the Cowboys defense is going to be much improved, but I'm not. I'm not super high on the Cowboys defense this year with Parsons possibly holding out. I think Parsons comes back, but I'm not as high on the defense. I think the run game is going to be bad. I think they're going to pass a lot. I think Jamar Chase is going to be in really, really good game scripts as well. I'm okay preferring Lamb over Chase. Just I don't think it's far off. I wouldn't be sitting here at the end of the season, and if you told me CeeDee Lamb was the wide receiver one, I don't think I'd be sitting here like super surprised. Now, Brock Bowers, this is an interesting topic, and let's talk about him since it's a tight end premium. He's taken at the 202 spot with Derrick Henry at the 111. That owner doubles up there, and Brock Bowers is a player for me, Chev, that I'm not taking second round in a tight end premium. That would be a little bit different for me. I don't mind taking him. I don't know if I would take him at the 202, but I think I think it's fine. Getting him, especially with the premium. But overall, in drafts, Brock Bowers' draft cost, is somewhere middle of the second round. That's a little too hot for me. I think we're drafting him at a ceiling, in my opinion. I think there's more playmakers, and they will spread it around a little bit more than what they did last year. Brock Bowers for you, though, forgetting that it's tight end premium, is he a guy that you're comfortable taking in the second round? Maybe at the turn I could rationalize with it a little bit more, but mid second round, is that spicy, or are you all in on him at that cost?
No, there's no. Again, like, this is a situation where we flip it, and it's like, all right, well, I could have, America Junior is just as good as America in this situation. Dadgummit, Drake London went. That was going to be my auto select right here. So
That
We're
was
gonna
my
do
pick.
something. We're gonna do something a little weird here. Let's get a little weird. All right. That's my guy right here. I I wanted to do this just for the sole fact that like I want people to know how bullish I am on Chase Brown this year. I want it to be no, I want there to be no equivocations. I want there to be I have zero questions about Chase Brown. And that's gonna be if I get stuck, this is my auto pick just because of the way that I can build out my teams. I think that he's got a workload secured that's going to be absolutely astronomical. Again, we talked about offline what I think about his potential workload and what that offense could be. You've already talked about how good you think the Bengals offense is going to be. So I think this is a misclick, like a misprice on behalf of the fantasy ADP right now. So I want to take advantage of that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I was a little skeptical. I think sometimes rookie hype gets to all of us a little bit, and I think when Taj Brooks got drafted there, I still think there's a possibility for some regression with Chase Brown in terms of workload,
Mhm.
opportunity share wise, but I think he can make up for that. Which is his efficiency, and if he can get more explosives, I think he can make up for even like a slight loss in workload. But overall, I think Chase Brown's a great pick. I've bought into him more and more as we get closer. He's my RB8 right now. And he's ahead of Bucky Irving for me. You take him ahead of Bucky Irving in this draft, ahead of JT, ahead of Josh Jacobs. So you're extremely bullish, and you've definitely made that known. And I think Chase Brown, look, he's in a great game script. I think he's gonna the talk. I don't try to buy into coach speak too much, but the talk is extremely high on him out of camp. I think they're a big fan of him. This is also a guy we didn't see a ton of explosives, but he still ran a 4.4 340-yard dash, right? So like he has the ability to, take a ball and go 80 yards, right? So we didn't
Yes.
see it a ton last year, but I think there can be some positive regression in that regard too.
Oh, look at me. I'm on the clock again. Where do we want to go here? Now, Chuck and I did an episode. Chuck and I did an episode where we talk about, the merits of zero wide receiver. And
Mhm.
that's what this is turning into for me. So normally I would go here with either another running back because it's half PPR. There's just so much value on the board here that I can't get away from. I have to do it. I've got to do it.
I think I know what you're doing, but
Yeah,
is it
I got
Brees? Are you taking Brees?
I am.
That's fair. I mean, that's a pretty crazy running back room. Have Barkley, Brown, and Hall. I'm in the opposite, right? I was hoping Hall would fall to me. I double up at wide receiver here. I love a lot of the receivers on the board, but I'm a little concerned about my running back room. I'm gonna go with Amarion Hampton here. I like Hampton a lot. I have him in my rankings right now as RB12. Maybe that's a little too high, maybe a little too spicy. I think people are making a little bit too much out of Hampton's one run that he had by the goal line yet
Oh
the
my
other day where
goodness.
he
Oh my
bounced it and people were like, he should have ran through the player. Like people that it's just people that like already had an opinion on him that just are looking for any little way
yes.
possible to tear a guy down because they didn't love him maybe as a prospect or love the landing spot or they liked other players more. But I think Hampton's going to be great in this offense.
Yeah, I think he's gonna be tremendous. And I think that Najee, blowing his eyeball off just kind of cleared up some things. Like if you really liked Amarion Hampton, but you had the questions about what his workload was gonna look like, I think we've gotten a little bit of clarity. We've seen Greg Roman talk about, just the spark that he's provided to the offense with just how physical and how explosive that he was. And that's kind of his calling card, right? He generated a lot of explosive plays. He was pretty much the centerpiece of that offense at North Carolina last year. And I think that he's going to step in this year and handle a ton of work for this Chargers offense. There's 460 carries roughly to go around. I think that he's now going to see close to 300 carries in year one. And I think Najee's still going to have some value because this is such a run heavy organization with a built up with already built out offensive line. I
Yep.
think that there could be value for Najee as a flex, but this kind of solidifies Marion Hampton in potentially returning that top 12. You know, you've got him at RB12. He could return on top 12 value because this is an elite offense with an elite offensive line, and he's going to see 300, potentially 300 carries in year one.
Yeah, and they did add Mekhi Becton to the offensive line, which I think is a nice addition for
Mhm.
that room. They were banged up a lot last year. Slater just got that upgrade at the or
Whew, he
not
got the
upgrade.
bag, didn't he?
Yeah, he got a contract extension. And I think, look, this is a team that made, J.K. Dobbins look good to start the year. I think he kind of phased out because, there were some injuries with the O-line, but also I just think that he started running out of gas. But
Yeah.
I mean, you have Joe Alt, you have Mekhi Becton, you have Rashawn Slater, you have Bradley Bozeman, Zion Johnson. And there's a lot of vacated targets, vacated rushes in this offense, right? 294 rushes are gone. No Gus Edwards, no J.K. Dobbins. Vidal is the only holdover from last year, of note, at least. And so I'm high on Hampton. I think he's due for a good year in his rookie campaign. I do want to note a team that I really like so far that's being built. I like the four hole. I like the Gibbs, McBride, Bucky Irving combo here. They got to
Yes.
land the ship with the plane with the wide receivers. But I think in a tight end premium, getting McBride a little bit later, and stacking with Bucky and Gibbs. Interested to see how that team turns out with their wide receiver room. But overall, I like what they're building so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've got two guys that are absolute nukes. Bucky Irving was around 18 points a game from the bye week through the end of the season when he was handed the keys to the castle. So you've got a guy that honestly is being a little bit discounted, but I think that he's done. Oh, you did it to me.
I
Oh,
knew
you
you were
did
gonna
it
go
to me.
for Adams. Adams is the last guy that I have in my tier 3 for wide receivers, and running backs. I couldn't pass up on getting
You're a sick
Adams.
man.
Yeah,
You're a sick
I'm hope
man.
my tier 5 is what I'm on for running backs right now, and there's a lot of guys in this tier, so I just figured I'm okay and getting comfortable with getting one of those guys on the way back, but I didn't want to miss out on getting Davante.
Yeah, I was really I had that earmarked because I was like, all right, cool. Let's lock in. Oh wow. Okay. All right, four hole. You came to play ball
Pickens.
today. That's fine. All right. All right. Kitty
That's
games down the street. I see.
that's
We've
your
got to
guy,
put our
man.
big boy pants on now.
Pickens is your guy, man.
Yes. Yes. I have been very loud on the internet about George Pickens for a long time. And I was fully prepared to just put my biases aside for 2025 and be out on George Pickens in the offense with DK Metcalf and Aaron Rodgers and Pat Fry. And now he gets traded to an environment where they're going to be one of the most pass heavy teams. The Cowboys were fifth in pass rate, like pass attempts on first down last year. And that's between Cooper Rush and Dak Prescott. That offense just wasn't great. I think it's going to take a step back, like take a step forward and be one of the elite offenses for fantasy like it was in 2023. So I thought I had more time to get Georgie boy, but Shocker tells me that the kitty game is down the street. So you sniped me with Davante Adams, then thinking that I'm going to be able to get him in the fifth. I just get sniped with George Pickens right there.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting sniped a little bit too. I was hopeful that Chuba Hubbard or RJ Harvey would get back to me. I knew James Cook wouldn't. But running back starting to dry up a little bit. I only have one. Receivers are much more plentiful at the moment. And that's what I get, I guess, for getting greedy. As I did see that the running backs, I mean, there's still running backs left in my tier 5 here, but we're on tier 5 for running backs for me, and we're on tier 4 for wide receivers. So um, probably need to start hitting running back more here. Shocker's up. He's one pick ahead of you. You need help at wide receiver. Just for the viewers listening right now, you have Rashi Rice, DK Metcalf, Davante Adams. Rice goes off the board right here in front of Chev. And Rice still looming a suspension. We'll talk a little bit about Rice at some point, but Jamison Williams off the board for you. You take JMO over DK, Devonta Smith, Zay Flowers, Xavier Worthy, Travis Hunter, Jaylen Waddle, Chris Olave. Why Jamison Williams so high?
I believe that he's the guy this year that could make a massive leap from 14 points a game to 17 to 18 points a game. And everything, if you're following the breakout breadcrumbs from training camp, you've heard Dan Campbell speak glowingly of his maturity and how he's developed more and he's more physically, developed and capable of the position. You've heard Jameson Williams himself talk about how his role has evolved to where he has more routes in the route tree and more responsibility. And so I think that this is a guy that I want to be early to the party on, especially, less so in full PPR or a start 3 wide receiver league. I would want him as a 3rd wide receiver in that. So I would go with a different build. But
Sure.
this being start 2 wide receivers and a flex, I want to be in half PPR. I want to be a little bit more bullish
No,
on
it's
the
full.
running backs.
It's full PPR. Full
Oh,
PPR.
it's full PPR. Even
Half
still,
point tight end premium. Half point tight
half
end.
point tight end premium. So I got that completely wrong. So full PPR, I'm a little bit less bullish, but I still think that he's going to offer the explosives. Again, the show that we did a while back about breakouts, we talked about him generating tied for the most 50-yard catches in the NFL and 3rd in 40-yard receptions in 2024. I think that number stays the same, or he stays in that same range in terms of explosives generated. So I want to be in on Jameson Williams, and I want to be early to the party.
Yeah, with JMO, the biggest thing here is JMO can do a lot with a little, and I think that's his calling card. If he can get up in volume, that'll be encouraging, right? Last year he had 2 games of 8. No, sorry, 4 games of 8 or more targets. 5 games of 8 or more targets. Sorry about that. 5 games of 8 or more targets. Receptions wise, he had a couple of games with just 1 reception here and there, a couple of 3 reception games, and he had only 1 game over 5 receptions all year. But the thing is, I mean, even in a game where he caught 4 passes against Jacksonville, he had 22 points because he had 124 yards and a touchdown, right? A lot of his games is just that he has spike weeks is because he does a lot with a little. And
Right.
so I think the coach speak is interesting. I also worry a little bit about St. Brown, a slight regression. I'm not as high on him this year as others are. I have St. Brown right now as my wide receiver 9.
Mhm.
And I think he's a good value if you can get him in the 2nd round. But I think Jamison Williams is going to start eating into that a little bit more. And it's just a matter of like, if JMO can start getting even just a bump in volume of like 1 more catch a game, like consistently, I think he's got a shot to finish inside the top 20 if all goes well for him. So I think it's fine to take Jamison Williams there. I'm not as high on some of the guys behind him like Worthy, Flowers, Hunter. So I'm okay with JMO there. I'm trying to look and see where I have Jamison Williams as my wide receiver 26 this year.
Yeah.
Ahead of Travis Hunter, comfortably ahead of Zay Flowers, Hunter, Devonta Smith, and Xavier Worthy, actually. So yeah, I'm cool with it.
I I think he's gonna. I'm almost certain, as I'm working through my rankings right now as we approach week 1 of the preseason, and I think Jameson Williams is gonna be in my top 20.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Interesting. That's great.
I'm that bullish on him. So goes over 1,000 yards with just 90 targets. Then he adds another rushing score. Like you could point to early career Tyreek Hill with the way that you can get there in an elite offense and what he offers from an explosive play perspective. And if they're going to use him on more, traditional routes and just let him win as a wide receiver, he could do a lot of damage on 115 targets. Now, again, he went over 1,000 with 90. So adding 20 to 25 targets in the offense just does nothing for me, but just makes me more excited about what he's going to be able to do with more of an opportunity share. Again, he was 38th in the league in routes run. He only ran 400 routes last year.
Yeah. And And that's really the thing. Can he get more volume? Can he get more involved in the offense? I think we can and will see that. Quinshon Judkins goes off the board here. That's the craziest thing about Judkins. I've seen Judkins in a lot of like best ball formats go outside of the top 100 consistently now, right? But with sleeper, their ADP, like that's the crazy thing about ADPs. People become such slaves to ADP, and with sleeper
Buddy.
not adjusting extremely sharp just yet because there haven't been as many drafts as like a best ball. I think that's a little high for Judkins, but people see a player there and it kind of shifts their mindset on if they should draft them or not, right? I think sometimes we become a little bit of a slave to the ADP, and I think that's
Absolutely.
probably a situation there where that might have been what happened.
Yeah, without question. I think that, maybe he got misclicked right there. I don't
Yeah,
I
that's all right.
there's no way that you can feel really confident about making the pick on Quinshon Judkins just because you can't feel good about that. Like we don't have one, he's not under contract. He's dealing with the off the field issues, and there's no real timetable for him to be able to for us to bank on for this to be resolved. So especially for redraft, if we're talking just like one season, there's zero chance that I can click the button with any sort of confidence right now.
Yeah, I get that. So let me ask you, right? I'm looking at the tight end position. We are in a tight end premium, right? So those guys that get a ton of volume and a lot of catches, like they're much more valuable in these formats than others. You have guys like Travis Kelsey. Let me pull up the board so that the viewers can see it. But this is what we're looking at here at the tight end position that's available currently. It's Travis Kelsey, it's Mark Andrews, Jonnu Smith. I still think his ADP is ridiculously high here. He shouldn't be going ahead of Tyler Warren and any of those other guys.
Right.
But you have Mark Andrews, Jonnu, Evan Ingram, David Njoku, Tyler Warren, Colson Loveland. If we're talking about, a tight end premium and we're looking for, some sort of edge, I think Njoku and Evan Ingram provide really, really nice value. And I'm very high on Mark Andrews, but Mark Andrews is not going to be like peppered with targets, right? He just makes a
Correct.
lot with a little and scores a lot of touchdowns. But I think Evan Ingram and Njoku are guys I would really, really be looking to take swings on here. When we talk about Evan Ingram and Njoku, these guys are guys that are constantly peppered with targets. I'm pulling up something here real quick because I want to make sure I get it right. But Evan Ingram and Njoku are both one of five tight ends over the last 3 years to average 90 plus targets on the last 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Kelsey, Hawkinson, Njoku, George Kittle, Evan Ingram. Now Kelsey's back, but is available, but I'm not taking Kelsey in hopes that he's going to have 90 plus targets this year, right? I think we see maybe a little regression in the targets, but I think Njoku and Evan Ingram are really, really awesome values that I'm going to try to punt tight end and then maybe look to snag one on the way back in round 8.
Yeah, I love the later tight ends here. You've got Evan Ingram, who seems like a good fit for a lot of volume in the Joker role. You've seen some of the reports out of Denver just talking about how valuable he's going to be to that offense. So that's kind of a mispriced ADP in my opinion. I mean, regardless of what you believe about Travis Kelsey, like as his talents remaining, he's going to be a part of that offense. And especially if we get clarity on the Rashee Rice suspension early in like going into week 1, Travis Kelsey shoots up my draft board again because you saw the minute that Rashee Rice was no longer factored in the offense, those low ADOT targets went from Rashee Rice to Travis Kelsey. So in a tight end
Absolutely.
premium, he's extremely valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he is too. I think based on at least my team, I think I would prefer to wait for Ingram and Njoku, but I don't think you can go wrong with Kelsey either. I think Kelsey's gonna have a good year. I think, if this is the last hurrah, right? I think he's going to, put up a good season. He goes off the board right there. We get our first auto pick, which is actually pretty good. 7 rounds in. But I'm fine taking Kelsey in a PPR. I prefer Njoku and Ingram because I do think there's a world where they both have more targets this season. But Kelsey is likely going to be on the better offense. Maybe, I don't know. Is there a world where the Broncos offense is better this year than the Chiefs? I'm not ready to say
It was
that, but
better last year.
I mean, I think they'll put up more points, but I think it's more of a philosophy thing with the Chiefs. Like that's why I'm not as high on Worthy as other people are, because everyone
Sure.
expects the Chiefs are going to explode on offense this year. Like I think it's going to be good defense, grinding out the clock, converting third downs like they did a ton, and making defenses miserable because they can't get off the field.
Yes.
So we'll see. But so let's take a look at your team so far, Chev. You're about to come up. You start off with three wide receivers, three running backs, then you go three wide receivers. Your last pick was Chris Olave. I think me and you are a little bit higher on consensus on Chris Olave. You get Sutton, Jameson Williams, Chris Olave, and you're coming up on the board here. Is there a philosophy? Are you sitting here saying, okay, I need to attack wide receiver again because my running backs are stacked? Are you looking at the tight end or quarterback position? Where does your mind go at this point in the draft?
Well, I like Chris Olave. The Chris Olave pick got kind of foiled because I was thinking I wanted to turn around and go Calvin Ridley here,
Hmm.
but there's still some tremendous value on the board. I have been a Jaylen Waddle denier fully, and now I don't have to make that click. So I get to talk about my tight end pick here. Where you at, buddy? Give me a second. I get to talk about one of my favorite tight end clicks. There we go. Yes. Yeah. And we
Climactic.
so I was gonna go Jalen Waddle here. I was gonna go Jalen Waddle, and I just think that the drumbeat is getting louder and louder in terms of the way that they're going to use him more so in the way that they've used Tyreek Hill in the past as kind of the motion guy, getting him moving forward off the line of scrimmage, and the relationship, the chemistry between him and Tua has been tremendous throughout camp from what I've read. So I think Jalen Waddle, in this range. Now, if we just we just rewind a year, we're talking about Jalen Waddle being in that same range as the Garrett Wilsons and the T Higgins, and being ahead of like Davante Adams and Jalen Waddle are some of the most mispriced wide receiver twos if we're talking about what they're, where they were at in terms of their ADP in 2024 and where they're at, 2023 and 2024 and where they're at now. So I think that he could bounce back. I think that this value here, if you're going to take a shot on what we think could be a really good offense with Mike McDaniel as a play caller, I think that this is a tremendous value.
Yeah, I think the full fade of the Miami offense is a little egregious for a lot of people this year. I think it's kind of similar to the fade on Olave. Olave's the concussions for Olave are baked into his price. He's going in the sixth round right there. Olave was
Mhm.
going in the second round last year. He didn't suffer an ACL. He does have a quarterback downgrade, but he has an OC massive upgrade in Kellen Moore. And then, it's really about the concussions. You're getting a 4-round discount from last year. Similar to that, you have Jaylen Waddle, where people are concerned about Tua, the injuries to him, the injuries to Waddle, but you know, that secondary is shredded up right now. No Jalen Ramsey. They lost both of their starting safeties. They lost two of their other outside of Jalen Ramsey. They lost their other two corners there, whether to injury or to free agency. So like that secondary could be pretty bad. They could be in a lot of shootouts, and this is an offense that we've seen. Like we understand. I don't think that the NFL is like, oh, they figured out the Dolphins, and so now like they can't be run that explosive offense that we saw a few years ago. Like I don't believe that. I think it's really just like we're so hyper focused on Tua's injuries, but they also have a much better plan at the backup quarterback position, right? They brought in Quinn Ewers. Like they're, in my opinion, in a better situation if Tua goes down than they have been the last two seasons. And so that's really the biggest concern is the health of the offense. But if we get a healthy offense and these guys are in shootouts, which we've seen them be able to keep up and get into track meets, like those Miami players could be very, very good values. I don't know that I'm in on the Tyreek Hill second round pick still. I'm
I
not there yet on Tyreek, but I could absolutely be very, very wrong about Tyreek Hill. I'm not saying he's going to be a dud. I don't think top 12 is where he's going to be this year. But I could, if the Miami offense bounces back, it's probably in large part because of Waddle, A Chain, well, all three of those guys. And I do think they're going to bounce back, but I'm not there with Hill yet. I think A Chain's going to take a lot of receptions and targets out of the backfield. But what are your thoughts on Hill? I mean, it seems like you're in on Waddle, but what are your thoughts? Is top 12 a steep cost for him?
Top 12 is a very steep cost, especially when you go back and you look at the way that they played offense in 2024. I think that the only guy that I feel confident in the top 24 being selected would be Devon Achane because you're looking at he got 87 targets last year. That number is probably going to go well over 100 if Tua is active for 17 games. He's 22.7 points with Tua in the lineup and like 8.7 points without Tua in the lineup. So they changed the way that they play offense because they couldn't run the ball and they couldn't get defenses out of the too high safety look to take away the explosives of a Tyreek Hill. So Tyreek Hill went from fourth in 2023 in first read target share to 38th in 2024. So for me, I can't click the button there. It doesn't feel good. I don't like it. It does not spark joy in any way, shape, or form for me to click the button on Tyreek Hill. I've got 15 seconds left. Didn't realize that I was back on the clock here, but we're gonna go ahead and knock this out. Yeah, we're just gonna take one of my favorite values in terms of what like the talent and what the situation that I feel like people are ignoring in Josh Downs.
Yeah, I like Josh Downs a lot. I'm at a point where it's like it's getting hard for me to click him because of like his cost starting to rise. He was still really good last year,
In
with
an
the quarterback.
abysmal situation.
Yeah, with the quarterbacks being in and out. I think my concern with Downs is the two wide receiver sets. Like it feels like Alec Pierce. We don't want to acknowledge it, but like Alec Pierce feels like he's locked in two wide receiver sets with Pittman. And I worry with Tyler Warren, who can play in that slot. He's going to play in line as well. I worry that Tyler Warren could eat into Downs a little bit. So that's where my concern comes. But I still have Josh Downs as my wide receiver 37, which is higher than consensus. So I'm not down on Downs, so to speak. But I was more excited to click him last year than I am this year. But if we're buying into Richardson, I'm not buying into Richardson bouncing back just yet. When they get to joint practices, I care about the joint practices more than preseason. When they get
Yes.
to joint practices, though, that'll really be like where I'll start to get a better feel for okay, like is Richardson possibly going to turn this thing around? But if he does, it should
100%.
be wheels up for Downs.
Yeah, so one of the things that I like doing is snagging one of these guys that's going to be one of the premier pass catchers. It didn't work out for me to grab Warren because I grabbed Tucker Craft and then Warren went 3 or 4 picks later. But I like grabbing a guy like Josh Downs here and then the last couple rounds of my draft, I'm going to leave with an Alec Pierce. I'm going to leave with because Alec Pierce, no one talks about it, but Alec Pierce and Anthony Richardson have some sort of deep downfield mind meld that just works. If nothing else in this passing offense works, Anthony Richardson can put the ball pinpoint accuracy on Alec Pierce. So he's one of the best values, but you don't have to make that click here. You do have Josh Downs in being one of the best separators and creating after the catch. So I want that piece, but then if I'm going for the nuke, the last two picks of my, one of the last two picks of my draft is going to be Alec Pierce, and the last one, Alec Pierce and Anthony Richardson of some sort,
Mm.
just because it's so cheap. And if it hits, Anthony Richardson is a Konami code quarterback. There's no qualms about that. It's just whether or not he's actually going to work from a real NFL quarterback perspective.
Yeah, I'm hesitant. I'm still kind of up in the air with Richardson. I think it's Richardson's one of those like, hey, you're probably going to get him at the end of your drafts, so it doesn't hurt. It's not expensive, so I can get down with that. I totally get that. Um, I'm gonna take Bo Nix here. I think he slides pretty far past ADP. ADP 78. I'm getting him here at 96. Right. I think this technically 96. It's 9.6. So
Yeah,
that's ninth round, 6th pick. So it's actually like outside the top 100. Technically, is where we
correct.
are.
Yeah, I was like,
Um,
that's like 10, yeah, like 108, 104, 105, somewhere in there.
Yeah, so I'm gonna take Knicks. I have Knicks as my QB7 this year. So I'm good with taking Knicks right here. I actually have Drake May as my quarterback 10. So if I didn't get Knicks, I was probably gonna wait for Drake May, who I have at QB 10. And Drake May right now in ADP, or at least on the board, he's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He's 9 quarterbacks back. Um, so I mean, he's great value in my opinion. I think he's going to use
I
his
agree.
legs, and with Josh McDaniels, I think that offense is going to look much better.
Yeah, I think that he's one of the guys. He's a sneaky quarterback. He's a sneaky athletic quarterback that no one's talking about. It's like you just forgot that he was one of the best scramblers in the entire league.
Yeah,
Through his first, I think his first 4 starts, he was 6th in rushing yards since the year 2000. And that's with names like Michael Vick, Cam Newton. He was in that company as a runner early on, and then they kind of throttled his running down because they didn't want to get him killed during a lost season trying to get him reps. So I think that they're going to, and you've heard camp reports where the Patriots are wanting to use his legs more, and they've added that part into the playbook. So I think that Drake May is one of the most underrated, but Bo Nix is also. He ran 92 times last year. He had 430 yards and 4 touchdowns. I think those numbers might come down a little bit because they're
yeah,
going to actually have viable rushing threats in RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins. But I love the Bo Nix pick because it's extremely safe. That was a stack that I wanted to build out. I was hoping that he would slide. I probably could have gone with him instead of Tank Bigsby, but there's
yeah.
still some tremendous value even later in the draft that I've got my eyes on here. So I love the Bo Nix pick. It's very safe, and QB7, I've been scooping him up everywhere in dynasty startups because this is Sean Payton's muse. Like, he loves Bo Nix, and
Yeah.
this is how it's going to work. They have the elite offensive line. He's got a great play caller, and now you can see that this is everything about them is trending in the right direction for him to give us like a Baker Mayfield type of output for 2025.
Yeah, and I think the thing with Knicks, I think the running game should help him though. Their
Agreed.
running game was terrible last year. I read a stat that said Denver didn't. Their starting running backs. So out of Estime, Javante, and Jaleel, none of them had a run of over 20 plus yards last year.
Yes.
Or it was 22 plus yards, right? So like they didn't really get explosive plays from the running backs. Their O line was great. It was just that the running back room was just abysmal. So I think that should help. I think the other thing with Drake May, going back to him, over 400 yards in just 13 games. And when we say 13 games, keep in mind that that's accounting for, he played in week 3 where he only threw the ball 8 times in a blowout against the Jets. He played again in week 8 where he only had 6 attempts in a blowout where he came into the game. And then in Buffalo, he only played 1 snap. So like really, it's about 12 it's if 13 games, it's really about 10 games where he had 400 yards, because in that Jets game he had 12 rushing yards the first time. He actually had 46 in week 8, even though he wasn't out there a ton. I only had
Mhm.
23 passing yards. And then in week 18 against Buffalo, he had 1 pass, like didn't rush or anything. So I mean, to have over 400 yards in practically, we'll call it 11 games, because he did get 46 from that second game with the Jets, even though he barely played.
Right.
I mean, you're practically looking at a 400 plus rushing yards in 11 games. That's pretty damn good. Now I'm in a tough spot here. I kicked the tight end can down the road a little far. I'll pull up the board really quick. I have 20 seconds, but just to give you an idea of who's on the board left at tight end, Jonnu Smith. We talk about fading a player. I mean, he's getting faded into oblivion here. Honestly, in my rankings, the highest guy that I think I have next, and I got to double check here, it's Hunter Henry. I have Hunter Henry at tight end 12. I was hoping that Jake Ferguson would get to me, but I'm gonna. Oh shit! Fuck. Oh god. Hold on. Hold on. Let me pause. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on.
Yeah, gotta undo that.
Yeah. Don't want John here. But I'm gonna probably be able to wait there. And at wide receivers, the guys I'm looking at are Shaheed and Pittman here. At running back, I don't really love the group here. I mean, maybe take a chance on Jaden Blue. There's been some good hype around him lately, but I think I'll continue to go to the well at wide receiver. And I think how do I gotta take myself off auto? Why does this always happen?
So
Uh, that's a tough thing, right?
yeah, I don't know how to.
If I set it, I could set a player manually here.
Yeah.
Um, so you know what? I'm gonna go with the wide receivers. I will go with Michael Pittman. I'm not in love with Michael Pittman, but you know, I have him higher than a lot of guys that are left at the running back position. So I'll take him there.
Yeah, and I've kicked the can down the road pretty far in terms of quarterback. So I want to go ahead and get a guy that I'm very bullish on for 2025. It would only be better if I could pull it off. If I would have pulled off the George Pickens
Mm.
stack there. But I want as much Dak Prescott as humanly possible in 2025.
Yeah, me too. I have Dak at quarterback 12, and then I have Kyler right ahead of him one spot, but I kind of go back and forth there. I love Dak this year. That we talked about it. Why don't you talk about it? I mean, why are you so in on Dak this season?
Well, the last time that they played a full complement of games, Dak Prescott sucked in 2024. There's no, hashtag analysis. We don't have to be too cute or cheeky about what happened with the Cowboys offense. But I think I pointed out earlier they were fifth in pass rate on first down last year. They add George Pickens, who's in a contract year, who's trying to get paid. And, you know, I think that, with CeeDee Lamb out there, they're going to be one of the most pass heavy teams, like, in drop back rate in the entire NFL. None of their rushing options really inspire me, and so I want to buy as much. I have as much CeeDee Lamb. I want as much George Pickens. I want as much Jake Ferguson. I want as many pieces of this passing offense as I can get. They threw the ball 590 times in 2023. And I think that those concepts, even with Clayton Adams coming over, and I think that that just changes the way that they want to run the ball. But I don't, like I said, the running back options are so cheap that they're not even remotely in consideration for me right now. But I do think that a rising tide lifts all boats. And I think if Dak Prescott's healthy, he supports all these weapons to, CeeDee Lamb close to a wide receiver one finish. George Pickens is probably going to be inside the top 20 just in terms of the explosive plays he's able to generate. And Dak Prescott having shown rapport with a receiver that's very similar to, George Pickens and Michael Gallup, with George Pickens being an unequivocal upgrade.
Sure.
And, Jake Ferguson led the league in end zone targets in 2023. And so now he comes back from the concussion. He had 89 targets, no touchdown. So I think that regresses to the mean more so in terms of what he's available or what he's capable of doing and adding to your fantasy lineup. So those guys are tremendous values to me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I wanted to get Ferguson, and he didn't make his way back to me, which kind of was a bummer. But yeah, I'm with you. I like Dak. I like Dak a lot this year. I'm excited to see how that offense runs with him. And honestly, I think Dak is. I mean, I say this, and sometimes people think I'm nuts, but I really do think Dak is one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. He doesn't maybe show up in the big games, and you know that can be frustrating. Don't get me wrong. But I think ultimately, I think when it comes to just like pure throwing of the football and just like what he can do, like I think he's super super valuable. And I like Dak a lot this year. I have Dak, so I have Dak as my quarterback. You know, I said quarterback 12, but I actually have him at quarterback 11. And I'm excited to see, what that offense looks like this year.
Yeah, no, it's To me, it's the same narrative that was kind of surrounding the Bengals in 2024 in terms of, Dak Prescott's even more discounted than Joe Burrow was. They were going in similar range last year in best ball, and you had questions about whether or not Joe Burrow was going to return from injury, whether or not if you held tight for Jamar Chase, that wide receiver 12 finish, CD Lamb finished as a wide receiver 8 in limited work in 2024. So I just see a lot of the parallels, and I want to be early to this party as far as that goes. Oh, Jaden Blue went out. That stinks. That's fine though. That's
Oh
fine.
man, I was hoping Jaden Blue would last to back to me. I mean, I'm not expecting like a ton, but Jaden Blue is kind of one of those cheap guys at running back that has a real chance to be that RB1. Doesn't sound like Javante's done super great there. Miles Sanders appears to maybe have a little bit of a leg up in terms of the veterans in that room, but yeah, I mean, so now I've you go Tillman. I'm not super surprised there. Uh, you go Tillman. Yeah, the running back position kind of starts to thin out here. And it's a lot of speculative plays. If you're in more of a risky room, maybe you take Rashad White because I think he gives a really good floor. You look at
Yes.
the wide receivers, there's some guys here. I think Kyle Williams sticks out the most, but in that offense, I don't know how much of an impact player he'll be early on, but I'll take Kyle Williams. I don't know, man. I keep looking at my running back room thinking maybe I should protect it there.
Well, you just want to have. I think you just want to have some. Yeah, you want to have at this point. You want to, and you can tell me if you differ philosophically, but you just want to have some touches that have some sort of upside. Like
Sure.
we know Rashad White can spike you a 20-point week because he catches, because he catches 5 or 6 passes and falls into the end zone when he has, 8 carries for 30 yards and then 6 receptions for 50 yards and a touchdown. So
Yeah.
those are the types of things that Rashad White can provide for you. I was huge on Rashad White going into 2024 just because I thought that workload was very secure,
Yeah.
and I was very wrong. Bucky Irving is the man. I loved Bucky Irving, but I didn't think that the Bucks were going to love Bucky Irving, but he was just undeniable. There was no he was just so good that you couldn't keep him off the field. We talked about it earlier in the stream where, he was 18 points a game once he was handed the reins. See Braylon Allen going off the board right there. That kind of that stings a little bit. I thought I was going to have a little bit more time. But yeah, I really believe that Rashad White is going to return some value this year. He's not just you're not going to hand that stinks because that was going to be my pick here, but we'll figure it
Field.
out.
Field.
Yes, yeah, absolutely in on Justin Fields at this price point. Like,
Yeah, yeah. I don't like to draft two quarterbacks and two tight ends, but if you do take Fields, right, like I'm good backing him up, and the upside is too hard to ignore where he's at right now. So that would be a situation where if I wouldn't take two quarterbacks, and it's like Dak and Goff. Like
right.
I
You take the
it's
second
12.
quarterback. You want that second quarterback, in my opinion. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no, go ahead.
But you take that second quarterback with the hopes that they have Konami code upside. It doesn't make sense to take a Dak and a Golf because then, sure, you can just play the matchups, but I'm aiming for a guy who can win me a week because, it's 25 points, even though he only threw for 170 yards and a touchdown, but he gave me another 60 and a touchdown on the ground. And those start to add up because I can't count on the passing volume, but I know I can count on Justin Fields as one of the best runners in all of fantasy.
Yeah, and you get some trade bait possibly too if somebody buys in on Fields, if he has a really strong start. I
Mhm.
would say when we talk about Kyle Williams, I'm really high on Pop Douglas.
Yes.
I've really liked his price point. Pop Douglas goes like 20 spots past Kyle Williams. And so I think Pop Douglas is going to have a better year. I think he's going to have more volume. So I'm glad I thought Pop was gone when I talked about him before. But I take Rachaad White last round. I'm still looking for upside. I think my wide receiver room is just really, really good. And I don't need to, I think I need to protect with running backs. I'm starting 2 rookies in Henderson and Amara and Hampton. I have Aaron Jones. I have Rachaad White. I think I could still probably use a little bit more help there. The tight ends are fine. If I get Hunter Henry or Brenton Strange, I'm good with it. So I'm going to wait again another round. But I'm going to take a guy that I'm high on, and it's Ray Davis. Um,
Damn. Oh no.
uh,
Oh gosh.
I do
That
love me some
that
Ray Davis, man.
yeah. Yeah. No. So we did a running back sleepers episode over on the FFD redraft channel, and that was one of the guys that we as we were doing research for the show, I came away liking Ray Davis even more than I did, you know, going into from like I liked him a lot from a dynasty perspective, just because I felt like, hey, we don't think James Cook is going to command get the type of money that he's asking for. And then you go back and you look at the way that the distribution of carries is 113 carries for rookie Ray Davis, 207 carries for James Cook. Who's to say that doesn't become even more of more of an even split in 2025? So, and then, it's the 12th round. You want the Buffalo Bills led the NFL in rushing touchdowns last year, and they're one of the most run heavy teams in the entire NFL. So, there were 32 rushing touchdowns to go around. So if they decide to trust Ray Davis with more responsibility in year 2, I just feel like the ceiling is, much, much higher than what this 13th round or 12th round ADP would lend us to believe.
Yeah, and there's a chart that I was taking a look at, and James Cook last year 1.04 half PPR yards per points per touch, was second in the NFL last year. Ray Davis was 14th Ray Davis in
Yeah.
points per touch. And that's with a guy who had just a 29.8% opportunity share. He had 6 total touchdowns last year. James Cook, 25th in opportunity share, 58.9% in 2024. The contract has not been agreed on yet. It seems like sides are both still pretty far apart. I don't think Cook's going to hold out, but it's something to note. I mean, even with Cook last year having a quote unquote career year, they still spread the ball around. And Ty Johnson is also a guy. I'm not going to draft him in managed leagues because I think he only has like upside as a receiver, maybe in deeper leagues. But I think Ray Davis showed that like he made the most out of his opportunities. And you could say the same thing for James Cook, extremely efficient with his opportunities. But the difference is I don't expect James Cook to score the amount of touchdowns that he scored last year, right?
Correct.
When you look at the top running backs in total touchdowns last year, right? James Cook is the only one that didn't score inside the top 12 in points per game. So like I look at this list, right? James Cook, if you look at the running backs last year, guys who finished top 5 in touchdowns, Gibbs, he was second in points per game. Derrick Henry, fourth in points per game. Kyron Williams, 10th in points per game. Tied for fifth, Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, and Jacobs, second, third, and eighth in points per game. James Cook finished outside of the top 10 in points per game. He finished 11th, right? He's the only guy in that list. And I just don't see it happening again for him where he's going to have 18 total touchdowns. I just don't. And I think they like what they have in Ray Davis, that they like Ty Johnson. I'm good taking Ray Davis because if there is an injury to James Cook, it's Ray Davis who's going to be the early down back, not Ty Johnson.
Correct.
And I like to take running backs at the end of drafts here. My strategy right now, I mean, my receivers are good. I have Jefferson, I have London, I have Adams, I have Adunze, and I have Pittman. You're always going to find flex plays. They're very rarely at this point in the draft are you going to find like a monster guy that's gonna be like a weekly starter for you in like your wide receiver 2 slot. You can find running backs that can be a RB2 for you that are going to be going this late. We see it every year. Bucky Irving, a lot of running backs have higher chances to finish higher than, the wide receivers. And there's also going to be so many flex plays you can play. So many guys that have high targets that you can get in there for a week that are going to be on waiver wires at receiver. It's harder to find those running backs. And that's why I like to hit the running backs later. You take Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt, who's a guy that I probably would have been targeting. A lot of hype around Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about him?
So this is an interesting. So now everybody's on the hunt for this year's Bucky Irvin. We talked about, you talked about Taj Brooks earlier when we were talking about Chase Brown. Have been on Al Gore's internet talking crazy about Brashard Smith and how much I love the landing spot. And this is another guy that 7th round pick, interesting weaving path to the NFL. Starts out at, I believe, Alabama A&M, and transferred up to New Mexico, then transferred again to Arizona, and it was ruled ineligible because some paperwork wasn't taken care of when he was at Alabama A&M. So he slides to the 7th round. He was 3rd in explosive run rate in 2023 at New Mexico, and I think this is a guy who probably sneaks into early day 3 if he plays out 2024. I mean, he's really explosive. We've talked on offline about him, and I think that this running back room is so soft in Washington that he's going to command touches. Like, I don't have a lot of faith that Brian Robinson is just going to handle this massive workload. I do
Sure.
think that he gets the ball first, but the way I think Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt, and we'll see once the joint practices start. I'm glad that you brought that point up, because that's another thing, that if you want to get better as a player, you have to be following the beat reports and what's happening once now the pads are on, and now that they're going into joint practices, you've got to be paying attention. So, but he's extremely explosive. And if you've followed the Commanders beat, this has been consistent from the time that he's gotten into the building, that he's impressed people. So I want to have, just an opportunity. This is a lottery ticket in this range. You talked about wanting running backs that could spike. This is a guy that I feel like could very easily spike.
Yeah, Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt absolutely could. I think B-Rob is going to continue to be a grinder. I took him, and I'm not expecting a ton from B-Rob this year, but I'm just taking him because I'm just looking at running backs that I know are going to get a good volume workload. When I did
Yeah.
take him, I like Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt. The only thing that's concerning to me is 24 years old, man. Uh, but on a serious note, it is funny. Like, we hear, like, RJ Harvey. I think the difference obviously is RJ Harvey was being drafted for rookie drafts in the 1st round, and so people worry about the age. Where Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt was like a 3rd round, late 3rd round to even sometimes undrafted in rookie drafts. So the age doesn't matter because you're not investing a ton in him. But I'm
Correct.
excited. The reports have been very glowing and high for Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt. And I think he's primed to make this 53. And you're already seeing him run with the ones, which is also huge for a guy that, like you said, was he undrafted? Or no, he's 7th round.
7th round pick. So, we so it was, and this was kind of like a dinner bell for people who had been kind of following this situation. One of my buddies was the first person to kind of make me aware. He's like, "Hey man, well, this guy from Arizona didn't play, but he was the MVP of the Shrine Bowl." And that was kind of my introduction to, hey, I need to go look at some of his film, go figure out what the story is with this dude. And I've just been, at every turn, he's just impressed me. I see Taj Brooks went off the board there. That's just that's unfortunate for me, is what that is.
Um, all right, so I don't really love. Is Pop Douglas still available? No, he's gone. He just went last round. I don't
Mhm.
really love a lot of the receivers left here. It's not great. Let me share the screen. I'm running out of time. Well, I got 30 seconds, so let's like talk through this here real quick. Jack Bash, Dante Thornton. This is the thing. Like, a lot of these guys are dart throws. Like, I don't know. They might have some spike weeks here and there, but like I don't know how like impact year 1 where you can consistently start them. Maybe I do go tight end. I don't really love drafting tight ends usually, but at this point, at this stage, with Hunter Henry, maybe I just double up. So I'm gonna go ahead and take some upside here. I'll take Elijah Arroyo.
Mhm.
Just because I have Hunter Henry, I could use maybe some depth, and I don't again always. I rarely do I ever draft another quarterback, but another tight end. And Drake Maye, by the way, lasts until the 13th round. Kyler fell extremely far in this draft too.
Yeah.
But you take Miles Sanders. Taj Brooks goes before me. Roshan goes after you. And now we're really just, making that last pick here on the turn. Are you going to double up? Are you going to triple up and go for another running back here? Or do you lean one way or the other? Or
If it falls to me, I'm gonna take Anthony Richardson here.
okay.
Yeah, it's between I wanna, I'm thin, not thin, but I want again to have that Konami code upside. I guess I could go with JJ McCarthy. So I'll say it's between Anthony Richardson and JJ McCarthy here. If I had a different quarterback than Dak Prescott, if I already had the rushing upside secured, then I would be more akin to take a guy like Penix or JJ McCarthy or something like that. But I want a guy who could potentially nuke that I could absolutely drop if he's a dud. And I don't feel like there's anything, with Anthony Richardson, I don't feel like there's anything that would, if he looks like crap in week one, I can just drop him and I can go find another quarterback to roster. So with this last round pick right here, I absolutely I want to bring home Anthony Richardson here just because if you know we wrote him off and he didn't write back and he rebounds this year, it's going to break fantasy.
Yeah, especially at his cost. So I understand it. I'm still a denier. And I don't blame people
Respectfully.
for yeah, I don't blame people
Yeah.
for taking that chance on him. This is also an interesting draft. A lot of guys in this draft so far, and I'll show the board at the end. Well, I could probably show it a little bit now here. A lot of guys at the end of this draft, well, in this draft, nobody really doubled up on quarterback. So there's a lot of depth. And that's generally why I like to wait on quarterback. You get guys like Drake May, Caleb Williams, Kyler Murray, Goff. Like, I'm okay having any of those guys as my starters, to be honest with you. Some I have higher than others, of course, but like that's why I just generally don't like to draft quarterbacks so high. Like a lot of
Yeah.
people are just finding themselves not taking quarterbacks so high. And we're seeing it kind of play out here. You take Anthony Richardson. I'm going to take my guy DJ Giddens. I
Yeah.
think he steps into a monster workload if JT misses time,
And
which
he's
he's done every
capable. Yeah. He's capable of absolutely smashing. I go ahead. I talk about your pick here. I love it.
Yeah, no, I just think like Giddens is, like you said, capable of handling a heavy workload. When we look at Jonathan Taylor last year, 303 rushing attempts. He was number one in opportunity share for all running backs, and then snap share wise, number two, and he was number five in carries. So I think overall, like, when you look at his history of missing games, it's a good bet to make on Giddens, right? He played 14 games last year, 10 games in 2023, 11 games in 2022. So he's missed. You're talking seven plus another three, so 10, and then you're talking about a guy that's missed 16 games the last 3 seasons. And if Giddens does, have to play because Taylor misses time, you're talking about a very likely weekly top 20 back that you're
I
getting
agree.
pretty late here.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Giddens is, if this was a best ball league, I'm pushing him up a few more rounds because of the injury history with JT. I kind
Sure.
of see the same thing. I see the same thing for Trey Benson. Run heavy offense, clear cut starter, but you have the clear cut backup in DJ Giddens and Trey Benson. I expected Trey Benson to be, have week winning weeks because that was going to be such a run heavy offense. I think the same thing for DJ Giddens. So yeah, with the last pick of a fantasy draft, why not? Why not secure a guy who we believe in, 4.43, at like one of the guys that blew the combine out of the water, right? So I think that this is something that's going to be very, very, very fruitful if it hits the way that you want it to hit for DJ Giddens.
Yeah, me too. I want to go over our teams. I do want to go circle back to Shocker, who we talked about in the beginning. And honestly, I actually don't love how his team ended up finishing.
So many wide receivers.
Yeah, he gets Gibbs, he takes Bucky, and he takes Trey. So like you put yourself in a hole there, kind of similar to what you had, where you took three running backs, right? He took two running backs and a tight end, right? So like you're light on wide receiver. Your wide receivers, I feel a little bit better about than his. I think there's a lot of upside here, but I don't really see. I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't hate it. I just think like the amount of wide receivers he pounds here and then really just like ignores running back. If Gibbs and Bucky stay healthy, this does have league winning potential, but
Yeah.
you're really leaving it up to chance because you're not giving yourself much depth. You're giving yourself a lot of speculative players in Jaden Blue, Roshan Johnson, Brashard Smith. So that's where my concern is. And then you're really leaving it up to chance with even the wide receivers. You take Ibuka and Golden, who I like, but
Mhm.
it's just it's all around. I don't really like how the team ended up finishing. As much as I liked the start.
Yeah, no, he came out of the gate. He came out of the gate hot. And then but the issue is you're going to have this team is going to have weeks where I feel like it looks like his team is the best team in the league. So if this were a real league, he comes out of the gates. And there's going to be weeks where his team absolutely there's nobody that would have outscored him. It's nails. But the weeks where it doesn't hit, or if somebody gets hurt, like you alluded to earlier, it's I mean you're cooked. You're going to have to trade some of this wide receiver capital away for people that are startable in the running back positions. As much as I love Brashard Smith, it might not happen for the first few weeks if Isaiah Pacheco is healthy and Elijah Mitchell is basically the carbon copy of everything that you want from a guy like Brashard Smith, and that's what he's facing right now. So I just I know that those players are talented. If this were a dynasty draft, I'd love this because you could kind of tear up some of that wide receiver capital and trade that out to get some running backs back. But in a redraft, I don't want to be so wide receiver heavy with guys that potentially, George Pickens being the first wide receiver you drafted. Rashee Rice is a great bet for volume. Calvin Ridley's a great bet for volume. But then you follow that up with like six other wide receivers or four or five other wide receivers, and it starts to lose its luster a little bit because and then you put yourself in a position where you could be talking paralysis by analysis
Yes, that
of
was what
who
I
to
was going to
start
say.
every single week. And that's just not, it takes a lot of the fun out of the game if you're consistently getting that decision wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you're sitting here and George Pickens and Rashee Rice as your wide receiver 1 and 2. Like, I don't love that. Rice, I have I have Rice as a guy that's decently high in my rankings. I have Rice at wide receiver 20. And that's solely because of the possible suspension. And just I like some of the other players. I have Pickens, as my wide receiver 35, which is less, that's lower than you.
Mhm.
I do have, Calvin Ridley higher than Pickens. I do have Jaylen Waddle as wide receiver 25. Like, I just feel like you have like a lot of low to mid wide receiver twos, but no real wide receiver one. And like you said, you're just going to go paralysis by analysis where every single week you're just not going to know who to start. And it's going to drive you nuts because you have a lot of talent. I'm sure these guys are going to score a lot of points and have really, really big spike weeks, but it's a matter of like, are you going to catch them on those spike weeks? And that's going to drive you nuts. But enough talking about other people's teams. Let's dig into our teams. Let's take a look at your team first. Why don't you read off the names and maybe pick one or two players that you feel really, really good about where you got them.
So obviously Saquon Barkley, we have the workload concerns and the historical fall off between a 2,000-yard season and the following season. We've seen it time and time and time again, but I think that if Saquon stays healthy, he's still gonna be a league winner. And even if it's only 14 or 15 games, it's still gonna be really good. He got dragged down at the one, he got dragged down at the one like 11 times last year. So, or inside the 5, if I'm not mistaken. So, love that. Chase Brown, second round. I've talked about that. I'm probably going to get cooked in the comments for that. I don't care. Draft Chase Brown. and join me in Valhalla, or don't and be real sad come December. Breece Hall, I've been really bullish about him from a dynasty perspective, and now I'm in from a redraft perspective as well. Cortland Sutton in the 4th round, Jameson Williams, Chris Olave, Tucker Kraft, Josh Downs, Tank Bigsby's. Love Tank Bigsby this year. Didn't expect to be here at all, but you can't ignore the camp reports. And I want to see, what happens when they get into their preseason rotations. Dak Prescott, one of the best values at quarterback on the board. Cedric Tillman, Mason Taylor, rookie tight end for the New York Jets, who seems to be the second in the passing tree right now. And Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Miles Sanders, and Anthony Richardson to close it out. Just taking those home run cuts, because if it hits, I think it hits in a major way.
Yeah, I like the team that you drafted. Taking a look here at the wide receivers, I do see a path where Chris Olave can be a top 15 guy if he's healthy, and
Right.
possibly. I don't think wide receiver 1 is on the table for him. I like the wide receivers that you have, though. I think J-Mo can be, inside the top 20. I think Sutton. I think all 3 of those guys can be. And your running back room is awesome, right? I mean, you get Saquon, you get Chase Brown, you get Breece Hall. So I love those guys as well. Let's shift over to my team here. And so I get Bo Nix as the starting quarterback. I roll with Amaron Hampton, Trevion Henderson. So a little bit of risk there with the rookies. But I'm high on both of those guys. I think Henderson and Hampton both have a chance to be top 12 running backs. My wide receivers, I get Justin Jefferson. I take Drake London. I'm not super concerned about the Jefferson hamstring injury just yet. We'll see if he's not practicing in a week or two. Maybe the concern level starts to go up a little bit. And then I take Hunter Henry, who I think is severely slept on. I have him as my tight end 12 this year. I think with the improvement at quarterback and what we saw Henry do last year, Henry was pretty good. Just pulling up his stats really quick. Hunter Henry in 2024 was 15th in points per game. What is that?
Go ahead.
He was 15th in points per game, tight end 12 in total points, and he had 98 targets last year, and only 2 receiving touchdowns. I don't expect him to only score twice. He had 6 touchdowns the year before. This is a guy that consistently, hovered around 5 to 6 touchdowns per season in his entire career. So I expect him to bounce back that way. And I expect him to continue to get volume in this offense. So I'm high on Hunter Henry. And then to round out the rest of my roster, Davante Adams in the flex, Aaron Jones on the bench with Rome Odunze, Brian Robinson, Michael Pittman, Rashad White, Ray Davis, Elijah Arroyo, and DJ Giddens. But that's pretty much it for us, guys. Chef, did you have anything else that you wanted to add before we head out of here?
No, I just wanted to give you kudos on the Rome Odunze pick. I think, if you followed the breakout breadcrumbs, he's kind of taking that step forward. I like him a lot this year as potentially the alpha in that wide receiver room.
Yeah, apparently that's a guy who was number 1 in contested catch rate last year. He had a lot of red zone targets, and I think he's going to be the focal point in the red zone along with Colson Loveland for most of the targets there. I'm excited about Rome Odunze, but that's really going to do it for us, guys. If we're going to continue to do more of these going forward, yeah, that's really about it. But if you haven't already, take a look at all the awesome stuff that we have rolling out here at Player Profiler on the website. We have the draft guide, the draft kit. We have tons of other things like Dynasty Deluxe. So go ahead, check those things out, and we'll see you guys next time.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.